Hi, friends. So I came on here last week in the middle of Armageddon, and I kind of gave you an overview of what was really going on in Florida. And I wanted to come back and really just recap what we all learned and experienced and give you a little insight into my head. So, people who know me well have said things like, Christy, you could tell that you were concerned. And I was for a lot of different reasons. We watched the devastation of Hurricane Helene. For any of our friends who lived in low lying areas, we are fortunate enough to not be in a flood zone, which means that the water that comes from the Gulf can't get to us. However, we knew lots of people who lost everything. And what was hard to comprehend was you would see entire giant piles of furniture outside of their houses, and you'd think there's nothing wrong with that furniture. Yes, there is. It was contaminated by sewage water and salt water and all the filth you could imagine. So anything that it touched, the water touched, had to be thrown away. So that was really hard to watch, right? And then 2 weeks later, 10 days later, in comes Milton. And when I came on here the last time, we weren't 100% sure how that was all going to look. Well, let me give you a couple different updates. One, we are so fortunate. We're fine. It was very scary. However, we didn't have any major damage. We lost three palm trees, and one of them fell into what I call a bird cage. It's a pool enclosure, and it is currently sitting on said pool enclosure. So we're going to have to fix that, right? Because it's structurally not sound. But if that's the worst that happened to us, we were so lucky. No windows blown out, no shingles lost, no major issues. So I say that because the calm before the storm was the last time I got on here, and now here we are on the other side, and there were some lessons learned. So hi, friends that are here right now. Lessons learned in Hurricane Milton. Okay, lesson number one. It is okay to be afraid. It is not okay to ruminate in the fear. So, the worst part of the storm for me was the waiting. We found out on Monday, schools are closed. Oh my gosh, everything's going to happen. It was supposed to hit on Wednesday. It didn't hit until late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. And so, there was just a whole lot of waiting, a whole lot of anticipation, a whole lot of anxiety building opportunity. Here's what I learned: don't live in it. You have to turn the news off. You can check when the updates happen, but you cannot just continue to watch. The problem with watching like that is it creates this underlying fear that is unnecessary. So, lesson number one: don't live in the fear. Acknowledge the fear and then move past the fear. That was the biggest lesson learned in this process. Lesson number two: surround yourself with the people who make you feel better. So, we were here with my mom and our daughter, Chloe, and Jason and I, and three dogs. And then our son and his fiance and their dog had to stay at the hotel where Jackson works. So we couldn't all be together. My in laws stayed at their house. They're only about a half a mile away, but we were together in spirit, right? We were in constant contact, and it is much more calming when you have your humans all in one space. So that's another lesson learned: is surround yourself with people who calm you. Surround yourself with people who make you feel as though you can conquer the world, whatever that might be. So literally, I'm sitting next to my mom. We had just lost power. We lost it like 8:30 at night, and I'm looking at her, and she is writing her book by candlelight. Those are the kinds of people you want to be around in those situations. And then the third thing is to appreciate what we have. So we lost power on Wednesday night at 8:30, and we didn't get it back until Saturday around 8 o'clock. That's a long time, and yet it's nothing compared to our friends in the Carolinas, or some of our friends who still don't have power here. And yet, every time you walk into a room, you flip the switch. Every time go to start something, like I started my garbage disposal at one point. I was like, That's probably not going to work. Cleaning out your refrigerator, things you just take for granted. So, the lesson that I learned in that is to appreciate what we have. Appreciate the little things. Appreciate the fact that you can flip a switch and the light comes on, or you have hot water. Everybody isn't that privileged. And we definitely learned to appreciate air conditioning and being able to just, sit and enjoy. But we also learned some things. We sat in our front driveway, which was odd, but that's where the breeze was, and talked to our neighbors and experienced life outside of the house and didn't shut our doors. How often in life do we shut our doors when we could just open them? And if they were open, all these great things could happen. So I'm saying these things as a reminder that it shouldn't take a tragic event for us to appreciate what we have. It shouldn't take a tragic event to remind us to spend time with the people we love the most. It shouldn't take a tragic event to recognize that we are very privileged in comparison to others in a lot of different ways, but perception is reality. And yet, why does it take a tragic event to experience those things? I don't have a great answer to that, but I do know that it certainly keeps things in perspective. So, today, my challenge to you is to look at your perspective. What are you staring at? What are you paying attention to? Are you paying attention to the bad? Or are you paying attention to the good? So, we had a conversation during our small group last night that I thought was relevant for all. So, I'm sharing it. And hi to my friends that are here. Here's the crux of it. Our self talk determines how we interact with others, whether those others are our spouses or our friends or our family members. What we're saying in our mind ends up coming out in those spaces. And so, step one is to figure out, what am I saying? And then, step two is to recognize that your sphere of influence over what you're saying is pretty huge. So, are you looking for the bad things by having the news on constantly and hearing all the things that are happening and kind of getting stuck in that loop? Or are you choosing to focus on the good things, the things that bring you joy, the things that make you laugh, the things that are inspiring to you? I don't know where your focus is, but I do know that whatever you choose to focus on is what you're going to see. So if you're focusing on those negative, oh my gosh, the world is ending, instead of, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful thing, whatever the thing is, that's what you're going to see. So, my encouragement to you today is to shift your focus a little bit and recognize that there are really great things out there that you can choose to focus your attention on. And I'm not saying be Pollyanna. That was the part that we talked about last night. And Jason paid me, my husband paid me a sweet compliment. He said, you used to do it almost as a Pollyanna, like over the top. And now it's just genuinely authentic that you find the good. And that's because I had to fake it until I felt it. So I faked it in my younger years when life was kind of tough and I was struggling with some things. And now that I'm older, we won't talk about how old I have a birthday in 2 weeks, but no, I'm 48. I will be 48 in 2 weeks. I'm proud of that fact. And in that span of time from 19 to 48, I discovered how to make that my authentic viewpoint of finding the good. And my encouragement to you today is you can do the same. It is never too late. You can choose to start to see the good things. You can choose to start to focus on where the blessings are. You can choose to see the rainbow at the end of the storm instead of just thinking it's always going to be dark. So Hurricane Milton did teach me a whole bunch of things. I don't want to have to learn that lesson like that ever again, but because it was scary, and I think it was worth it. Right? Like, I mean, we can't change it. It happened, and it affected all of us in many different ways. And I'm hurting for the people who are hurting and haven't been able to work for 10 days and are really in a struggling situation. But I'm also grateful that I learned some lessons that maybe I needed to be reminded of. Maybe they were things I knew but had kind of forgotten. So maybe there are some things that you know that you've kind of forgotten. So remember those. and maybe there are some things that you aren't sure of that you need to be. So remember those too, and recognize that what you choose to focus on is what you're going to see. So choose wisely. I hope you have an amazing day and that today is full of blessings because that's what you choose to see. Take care.